Green Town Center and has been satisfying Cleveland's sweet tooth since 1961. Give them a call at 476-5179 or come and see them at the Village Green Town Center.
Brownies, cupcakes, wedding and birthday cakes, muffins, pies, Danish.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Woo FM. Call now. You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Woo FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
All right, we're back here and live in this studio. It's starting to cool off in here a little bit now. So, anyway, we've got the heat adjusted and the air conditioning and all that. Oh, we have a phone call. Let's take it.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Good morning. You're live on Whoop.
I tell you what, I would like for one of those guys to be my lawyer, because if you can argue that good, I think it'd argue good for me in court.
Well, we can see if we can arrange that.
I tell you what, there. I got a comment to make about the union.
Go ahead.
I worked for Matty Shelf. We were back in the 70s, late 70s, and I think they voted union over, and what they do, go out on strike. And a lot of people lost their homes, lost their marriages, and I think it's voted out. I don't know if we got a union in here or not, but I think they voted out. And those people up there that's doing without Powell County Union, I think that's ridiculous. I wouldn't. But like I say, though, we tried to get a union over here one time, and it didn't work. And so I don't know.
You're going to see a lot more of unions trying to force their way in over the next 4 years with companies around the United States.
I know it. Well, they tried to come in over at Matty Shelf, and the first thing they did, go out on strike.
Well, they're down here now in the South messing with the car manufacturers in a big way. They're really upset that the car businesses came south to get away from the unionism, and now they're going to push this. They've been in Alabama working really hard, and I know they've been other places around down here in Tennessee even, but they're going to push this union, Volkswagen down here. They're going to keep pushing these unions, and unfortunately, the unions have walked back the new president, and he's going to have to give them some paybacks out of this.
Well, they even tried to call my brother come across picket line. He wouldn't do it because people knew him, and he's afraid he might get, he don't know what happened to him, so they was even calling people trying to come. And they didn't know way he was going to walk across picket line. And anyway, guys, I'm enjoying your show this morning. I just thought I'd...
Well, thanks for calling.
Well, there was a study that showed that when a union goes on strike, if the strike lasts longer than 2 weeks, it doesn't matter what concessions you get, you lost money.
Yeah.
So as a worker, if you're on strike more than 2 weeks, you've lost, no matter what. And what's sad about this is the unions did back the president heavy, and one of the political issues that's going on, the reason these plants are down here is because we're right-to-work states.
That's right.
And so if you get a union, you have to have an election, just like we elected the president, a secret ballot election. But what the Democrats want to push in, and what the unions want, and they're trying to defend this, is they want a card check election where a bunch of union thugs come to you as a worker, stand around you and go, are you for or against the union? Check the card. Does anybody in their right mind think that's fair? You know what? Who in their right mind could be against a secret ballot election? But actually the unions and the Democrats are against secret ballot elections.
Oh, I know. It's amazing. Let's take another call. Go ahead, caller.
Hey there, Steve Ron Moore.
Hey, buddy.
I'm a Democrat, as you may well know.
Now, I'm not sure if you are or not.
But I am pro-people and not pro-union. I think if companies treat their employees right, they don't need unions. So, not all Democrats are...
See there? I don't think you're a real Democrat. You just think you are.
No, I am a real Democrat.
If you were running for office, Ron, and you said that, they wouldn't support you.
That's right.
Well, I did run for office, and I did say that. And
the unions didn't come out enough for you, I guess.
No, the unions reported to Republicans here in this area. So...
we don't have a lot of unions in Bradley County.
True. Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
That's true, too.
Two other things here real quick. I'll get off here. Franklin mentioned that the tax dollars and, how smaller government, I've got the chart here in front of me. New Jersey gets back 61 cents for every dollar they spend. Now, I don't agree with the way these numbers work out. I think we ought to have a dollar for a dollar. But in Nevada, 65 cents. I heard John say last week that California gets back all this money. They only get back 78 cents. Now, you go down to the South, Tennessee gets back $1.27, South Carolina $1.35, Arkansas $1.41.
Now, does that include though or the bailouts and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's just typical.
That's
numbers.
just the typical spending.
Yeah. The southern states lead the chart in terms of getting more than they put into it.
Well,
that's just a fact.
I'll be the first to say, cut my taxes and quit giving me more money back.
That's fine, John, but it has an impact. It has an impact in roads being built, bridges being done, because a lot of those federal dollars go into that
But
sort
Franklin,
of thing.
here's my point. It's not fair. You know, I'm not living in New Jersey or one of the states, or let's say California for that case, that only gets 71 cents back. But it's not fair. I don't want their money. I don't want someone in another state to have to pay for my expenses.
John, I agree with you. I'm just saying it, but you know what Franklin says. When we make that happen, you know, Mississippi getting back $2 and a penny, Alabama $1.66, has a big effect on the southern states, which tend to vote Republican, and you the guys want to get rid. I thought that's right. Now, my last comment, and I'll let you go, is that I am appalled by people voting to secede from this country. I think, if being a historian, you know, we tried that experiment in 1860. Didn't turn out too darn good. But those people are hypocrites and anarchy, and there are people right here in Cleveland, Tennessee, has signed the petition for the state of Tennessee. You can go on the line.
Well, one, they're not voting, Ron. It's a to be honest, it's a problem that the White House created, because they put on their website that if 25,000 people sign on to an issue, they'll issue a response. So all these people are trying to do is get the White House to have to issue a response. Now, let me say something though. This kind of has been a pet peeve or project of mine for a long time.
Just one?
Well, there's a difference between saying I don't think secession is a good thing and saying they don't have the right to it, because it's very important for people to understand the reason the founders put the right of secession into the contract when they formed the United States was because they wanted to make sure the states were a sovereign entity, that if the federal government became abusive like the king had been abusive, that the states could actually get out of this. So I don't like it when people go, oh, you don't have a right to do that. They absolutely have a right to do that. Do I think it's a good thing? No. But there's a difference between that and saying you don't have the right to it.
Hasn't Franklin might be able to help me here on this one? Is I think that it's went to the Supreme Court and it's constitutionally against the rules.
You're right, but I'm still saying that was wrong. When you go back and look at the intent of the founders, they put the secession right in there for a very express purpose. This wasn't an oversight on their part. They did it on purpose.
Well, the Constitution was created after the founding of the nation, so you're really thinking of the Articles of Confederation originally. When
well,
you say
actually,
the
there are
founders
three
did
states. There are 3 states in their state constitutions that reserve the right, and so the Supreme Court, it can be argued, was wrong because Equal Protection Clause can't allow one state to have a right that another state doesn't have.
What states were this? Texas and what the other two?
Oh no, there's 47 so far that have started petitions.
Yeah, I just think that's
well, the states haven't started petitions.
People in those
have.
states.
Well.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Matter of fact, our governor, I'm pleased to say, had the good sense to come out with a statement that Tennessee wasn't interested.
Even
in that.
Rick Perry said that it was foolishness.
Yeah.
you know, there's always been this statement: either you love it or leave it. If you want to succeed from this nation, go ahead and leave it. Pack your bags, move on out.
But my point, Ron, is it's important for people to understand the founders were terribly afraid of an oppressive central government, and that's why they put the secession in the original articles, and that's why 3 states wrote it into their state constitution. And these are actually northern states, not southern states.
New York, Virginia, and
Connecticut, I believe.
Well, I think it's New York, Virginia, and Texas was its own nation republic. You know, I just think...
Well, Virginia is a commonwealth, which actually affects them as well.
So, but just to say that you want to succeed, anyone just saying that he wants to succeed, I mean, you can complain about the government all you want to, but to succeed from this game, we've had elected officials say these things too in the past, and that just offends me to the great
Well, Ron, a lot of these people are concerned. George Bush in 8 years did around 80 to 90 executive orders. President Obama in 4 years has done close to 900.
What in the world do you think's caused all that?
So, John, you're saying that you want to secede from...
No, but I'm saying people are concerned about a government that's actually not operating within the bounds of the Constitution.
What about no budget for the last few years?
You know what? It hadn't affected my life one bit down here in Cleveland, Tennessee.
What about the fact that it's wrong, Ron? The law requires the Senate and the House to both pass a budget. The Senate hadn't passed one in 3 years. What about the fact that it's wrong?
Leave this country.
Well, tell me this, Ron. If the Senate doesn't have to follow that law, why do I have to pay my taxes?
Yeah.
Don't.
Well, what will they do to me?
They'll prosecute you.
Right. So why isn't anybody prosecuting all the senators who haven't followed federal law?
But you've got a good argument that we didn't do that side, so go ahead and don't pay them.
My point, that's actually my point, Ron. There is, even whether you agree with the law, you're making the argument that people shouldn't want to leave, and I agree with you. But by the same token, whether the Senate agrees with the law or not, they should follow it. And once you start breaking down the rule of law, it's hard to keep anybody following it.
Hey, Ron,
yes.
Let me see if I can get something that all three of us can maybe agree on. I'm gonna try this. It'll be called Congressional Reform Act of 2012. No tenure, no pension. A congressman or congresswoman collects a salary while in office and receives no pay when they're out of office. Congress, past, present, and future, participates in Social Security. All funds in the Congressional Retirement Fund move to the Social Security system. Immediately, all future funds flow into the Social Security system, and Congress participates with the American people. It may not be used for any other purpose. Congress can purchase their own retirement plan, just as all other Americans do. Congress will no longer vote themselves a pay raise. Congressional pay will rise by a lower of a CPI or 3%. Congress loses their current health care system and participates in the same health care system as the American people. Congress must equally abide by all laws they impose on the American people. All contracts in the past and present, congressmen and women, are void effective end of 2012. The American people did not make this contract with Congress, men and women. Congressmen and women made all these contracts for themselves. Serving in Congress is an honor, not a career.
Tell me where to vote.
Huh?
Tell me where to vote.
I think most people would agree with almost all of that.
Why can't we get that put in place?
Because they'll have to vote on it.
I mean, Steve, that happens on a local issue. I know that Lisa was very upset when the Tennessee Waltz came through. Now, that was a state legislative scandal. And when they passed the ethics reform, guess what? Didn't apply to the state legislators, only applied to the county commissioners, the state county governments. She said, we didn't do it. And yet the correction, supposedly, didn't apply to the very people who did it. We run into that. I will tell you, I heard something this week that I was very impressed with. Congressman Desjardins has been reelected.
Right. He's
still maintaining his medical practice. He has a couple of physician assistants. There's so many charts he has to review every week, But
he needs a fresh supply of patients to come through.
Well,
John.
Franklin, you want to go back to old issues. You said you didn't want to do that. My point is,
I was really just being funny.
I know. My point, though, is that's an important thing to think about. Here's a man who's serving in Congress, but he's still maintaining a business. And what that means is every time he votes on legislation, he knows that if I vote on something that harms business, it harms my ultimate livelihood. It also means that he's intending to go back to that business. That's what our founders originally intended. They didn't intend for people to be congressmen for life or to be my career is a congressman. They intended you to go serve your fellow man and go back to your original job.
Can we, the people, not get something done about this?
Well, we keep electing the people who go vote on them. We keep re-electing those same people back for 20 years. No, we can't. Apparently, until the American people, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, whoever, if we'll go to the ballots and vote for people and get term limits and that, but we got to tell our congressmen we want term limits. Do you think our congressmen or any other congressman going to say, no, I like this here. I'll stay for 20.
Now wait a minute.
Well, there is a group, and it's not all Republican. There's more Republicans in it, but there's a group of Republicans and Democrats that will vote for term limits. Have said they would.
Well, can we not propose this as we the people, get somebody to propose this, and let them vote on it, and let each state closely follow what their politicians, how they vote on this issue, with them knowing that they want it changed, and then when the election happens, let's start picking them out of the office one at a time.
Well, I mean, the states themselves could pass proposed constitutional amendments that way. If you want to do that. So could the people do it? Sure they could.
Here's
they
the
could
problem,
do it on a
Steve.
local level.
The people can't name a Supreme Court justice, but they can name all of the American Idol judges.
Right.
That's the problem here. Well, nobody's paying attention.
They changed them this year. I don't know who they are now. The Idol judges.
Well, what a tragic loss.
I don't know who they are this year. So.
Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
I've got a quick question.
Okay.
What do you think President Obama is going to quickly do to help increase jobs?
Well, I think the first thing that we've got to do is work on the financial cliff or slope or whatever it happens. I've heard all kind of definitions. We've got to fix that problem.
Is the Bush tax cuts going to be part of that?
I don't know. I think they got to come to a compromise somewhere along the way, and the Democrats, Republicans are going to have to do it together. And do you
think the wealthy people can take care of America?
Not by themselves, no, sir.
Well, if we start taxing the wealthy people more,
well, we're not talking about great amount of money. Back to the Clinton tax cuts, back to that Clinton level, the country is in pretty good shape. It doesn't matter if it's the rich or the poor or what we cut, unless the Democrats and Republicans work together. We can't blame just Obama. We can't just blame the Republicans. We can't just blame the Democrats. We got to blame everybody right now. We're in a situation where America's got to come together and not just blame Obama, not just blame the Republicans.
Well, Ron, one of the problems for Republicans is that a year ago the president said, with the economic statistics as they were, it was absolutely the wrong time to raise taxes on anybody. Now, during the campaign, with economic statistics that were actually worse than when he said that, he said, oh, we're going to raise taxes on the rich. I don't know which statement he's going to go by, and that's one of the problems for business people. We don't know where this is going to go. So that makes it very difficult. The other problem is this fiscal cliff. And I don't want an argument about this. I'm just going to say this. He talked about, well, Congress did this fiscal cliff. This was actually his White House advisors that formulated the concept of this fiscal cliff, pushed it on the Senate. Harry Reid pushed it on to the Republicans, and they did agree to it. They all agreed to it. But the point is, it was his idea. And then in the campaign, it wasn't his idea. It's hard for the public to have confidence when they hear conflicting statements on the same issue.
You're right, John. There's all kind of, blame the Republicans, blame the Democrats, blame Obama. It doesn't really matter. It's what we do between now and January 1st.
But my point is, Ron, I don't know what we're going to do. The president has said two different things within the past year, completely contradictory things.
I don't either. I think that we're going to rely on our congressional leaders, both Democrat and Republican, our Senate leaders and Obama, and to sit down and say,
look, this.
And then they've got to sell it to their membership, because Boehner could come in and strike a deal, and part of the Republican Party go. And same thing with Obama, and they could say this is what we want, and some Democrats, the more liberal side of the Democrats, are going to say, no, we can't go with that.
Well, the problem with saying the president's going to lead the deal, the every budget he's sent to the House and the Senate has been voted down by his own party. The last budget didn't get a single vote in the House or the Senate. Not a Democrat in the House or the Senate voted for it.
John, you're absolutely right. There's problems there, and it's what is the Senate going to do? Democrat?
Well, the difference now is there is a major penalty for both parties.
That's right.
If they don't reach an agreement. And, if it works out, then it will be political genius to have created this, because it'll have motivated everybody.
Well, I'm sure
to come together.
when it looks like genius, he'll take credit for it again.
Well, I would think, John, that if it helps us solve our budget deal, that deficit that your party, like the Democrats, would be cheering for.
You know what, Franklin? Here's the problem.
Instead of cheering for failure.
No, here's the point. When you and I talk about these things, Franklin, I respect what you say because you're honest about it. My point is not whether it's good or bad. I don't like dishonesty. I don't like the president to say one thing one time and another thing the other. I respect you because you don't do that. Ron doesn't do that. But this president, I'm sorry to say, I can't give the same compliment to.
Well, unfortunately, John, whether we like it or not, that's our president for the next 4 years. We hope that he and Boehner and Reed and you name all the guys down there, that we come up with some kind of deal, because I think the financial cliff is the wrong way for us to go right now. I think that would affect jobs. If we get this deal set in January, then we'll have to see. The only way people put there is no government, there is no other program that's going to make jobs. Customers is what make jobs. And you won't hire any new people until you need to make more product for the customer. So what we got to do is make sure that everybody has a chance.
Actually, Ron, there's a little bit of a problem there. I won't hire any new people to make new product if I can't turn a profit on the product.
Sure. Well, it's all about profit.
I know, but that's the problem. If you come in and you limit the profit that a company can make, it doesn't matter how much customers want. If you're losing money on the product, you don't make it.
Well, that's why we got to get this. Hey, guys, I've taken too much time. The financial cliff is I hope that everybody comes together in it, because if the Democrats win, the society loses. If the Republicans win, society loses in this particular time. We have to come to the middle, and we have to sit down, which we've got to learn to do a lot more of.
By the way, John said something a moment ago, and it piqued my interest. I wanted to look it up to see what it is, so I've got my trusty smartphone out here. It's about the number of executive orders issued by presidents. Barack Obama has not issued 900 executive orders.
Okay.
He has issued 138 as of October of this year. Now, just by
comparison, that's 1 month, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's not. And just by way of comparison, he's on roughly the same schedule as George W. Bush. He had 291 in 8 years. Bill Clinton had 364 in 8 years. The first Bush, only 166, but Ronald Reagan, 381.
Well, Franklin, here's the deal.
My point is just simply the suggestion that he's on some binge that's different from what other presidents done just isn't accurate.
But Franklin, a lot of us think that these executive orders have been wrong from the get-go.
That's a separate question, John.
Well, one, it depends on how you define executive order. There's official executive orders, and there's unofficial ones, and there's regulations that are really under the executive authority. There's all kinds of ways to define that. My point, I don't give a damn whether it's one. I don't think that you should circumvent the elected representatives of the people.
That's the philosophical issue. I'm just correcting the factual question.
Well,
I understand what your position
I'm sure
is,
you're technically right in the term executive order, but it's like
Ron.
Just this week he's now taken 1.6 million more acres out of the oil production fields in the West. Now, 1 week after he got elected and say he was in everything on. He wipes that off. I don't know whether that was an executive order or an EPA, but the fact is it's an action that the Congress didn't take.
Let's take a call. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Hey, Steve, did you your suggestion there? I like it. Did you get that off Ron Paul's website about how they should be compensated?
Someone sent me that in an email, so I didn't get it from Ron Paul. I'm sure you.
Well, that's exactly what he did. He isn't in there.
I think Jimmy. I think I'm trying to think of his name. Buffett. That's Buffett's rules.
Warren Buffett.
Warren
Buffett.
Yeah, he was wanting to try to get some of these things done.
Well, that's directly from what he did. He didn't. I think he does take his Social Security, but he takes nothing else. He's not in the health care bill. He doesn't take their health care.
Yeah.
He doesn't take their retirement. He doesn't take any of that stuff.
You're talking about Ron Paul.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what they should do. I mean, Well, they set themselves up like they're a little.
Well, the worst of it is these rules for the workforce, as far as discrimination and employment. They're not subject to those, and that's horrible because you sell those to the public that, hey, we're protecting your working ability, and then your own congressman can violate those very rules.
There's a lot of those proposals on there that sound like they're common sense, but if you want to go right to the heart of it, I think if you were to pass the rule that Congress can't impose rules on the American public that don't apply to them by itself, would be a major improvement.
Well, what it does is it makes them have to actually look at what this rule does.
Absolutely, and I think that's absolutely common sense.
You know, it's like the president talked about equal pay for women. The White House staff, the women on the White House staff earn, I think it's 18% less than the men on the White House staff. Well, it's hard for the public to see one example and be told that they have to live up to another example.
Well, it's like the financial situation where they were basically insider trading, and then they weren't even held accountable. They weren't held accountable, and everybody else would have been in jail, you know.
That's right. That's a good example.
All right. We're coming into our magic hour, so we're going to wind it up here. Thanks for calling. I guess, to kind of end the show, we can go on and on and on. That's why we only do this for 1 hour once a week.
There hasn't been a groundswell of support for us to do it for 2.
Let me say one thing y'all might want to watch. Tennessee has taken a supermajority. The Republicans have.
Right.
California, the Democrats have taken a supermajority. They've actually temporarily increased the state sales tax and the income tax on individuals making over $250,000. They voted against Proposition 31 that would have allowed the governor, Democrat governor, to cut the budget in fiscal emergencies, and they voted against Proposition 32 that would have prevented unions from making political campaign donations with members' dues. It'll be interesting.
In public referendums, they made those votes.
Right. The public made those. But my point is, it'll be interesting to watch how the fiscal situation in California government goes versus how the fiscal situation in the Tennessee government goes. You have a supermajority Democrats in California. You have a supermajority Republican in Tennessee. I think everybody ought to watch how those two states go the next couple of years.
Any other last comments, Franklin?
I hope that the supermajority in the Tennessee legislature focuses on their pro-business agenda and not their pro-social legislation agenda.
Actually, the social legislation that got a lot of attention was actually very small compared to all the pro-business.
I'm talking about prospectively, not retrospectively.
Well, they did last year. I'm sure they will this year.
I think right now it's really important for the president and the outgoing Congress to work immediately, this year to prevent the physical cliff from happening and lay the groundwork for the big deal. We need some big deals done in America to restore our long-term physical balance and boost our economy. Right now, there's nothing exciting happening. There's nothing new and exciting happening. We put all this money on Solyndra and all this crap that trying to get something going. That's not where it is. And I think the physical cliff and trying to help business leaders be able to put their budgets together for 1 year and 5-year plans on growth in their companies is a key to America's success. Right now, I think businesses everywhere are sitting on their butts because they don't know what's going to happen. Right now, if you've got over 50 employees, if you're sitting there with 60, 70 employees, what in the world are they thinking about with Obamacare? They're thinking about having to lay people off or going to part-time help.
I'm not going to out who it is because they can speak for themselves, but I had a long conversation just this week with a local business. It's in the fabricating business here, who said, and I'm just quoting them, Obamacare is going to make it possible for us to offer health benefits to our employees that we never could have otherwise because of the subsidy that'll be coming down from it. That was their statement, not mine.
But Franklin, where's the subsidy come from?
Yeah.
We're over $1 trillion in debt every year. It's not
the
magic money.
It's not magic money, John, but it skips over the fact that we are already paying for this in a different way through indigent care, people who are uninsured. And so it's shifting those dollars around in an attempt to hold the growth of those costs
The
down.
growth has gone up the last 3 years.
Well, Obamacare is not in effect yet, John.
Well, some of it is, actually. Some of
But
it has
not
already been put in
not the
effect.
cost-saving parts of it. Everybody has to get on the plan.
Well, you know,
first.
that's amazing. That's just like all the budget deals we get. Hey, we're going to raise your taxes the first 5 years, and the last 5 years we're going to cut spending. Only,
No,
guess
that's not
what?
what I
A new
said at all.
Congress. Well, that's what happens. A new Congress comes in, and they go, "Hey, we've decided not to cut spending."
The part that has to happen in order for it to be effective in that regard is that we have to get all the uninsured people insured.
Well,
once that's done,
the public was
then you
told
can control the
that
cost a
the
little bit.
public was told as soon as it was passed, it was going to bring down costs, and that's not been the case.
All right. What time is the president going to speak about Benghazi for the first time?
I'm not sure. There's a press conference
Franklin
today.
announced that there's a press conference
there
on
is,
this
there is.
today.
Well, let me
Yesterday.
ask you a question, Franklin. He said that he wouldn't have anything to say until after the investigation was complete, but yet the investigation is not complete. So why is he talking?
Well, he's giving a press conference on all of these issues.
Well, why didn't he
today.
do it before the election? I mean, if the investigation,
The
reason
same
he did,
reason that Mitt
I'm trying
Romney
to
would
end
be
this show,
sitting
not
down
he
stir it up.
said that he couldn't do it because the investigation wasn't complete, and yet now he's doing it, and the investigation's still not complete.
Hey, I'm trying to end this show, not stir it up again. Let's talk about next week. I want you to be thinking about voter IDs. Has it caused a problem?
Well, it didn't cause a problem in the Florida county that had 130% of the registered voters
This is
vote.
next week. Next week, folks. We'll see you next week right here
Where
on
do you
Backfire.
get this nonsense?
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chansey. Catch them again on Whoop FM at noon today and every Wednesday morning from 7:30 to 8:30. Now, back to more music on Whoop FM.